and welcome again to another episode of Uniquely Designed. I'm so glad that you tuned in, and do me a favor, as you always do. Go ahead and share this with someone. Put in the comment section where you're watching from. Even if you're on break, if you're driving, don't comment, don't say a word. But if you are somewhere that you are still, go ahead and share it with someone and let them know that it's another episode. And I get to have a great conversation with an amazing guest. I know it sounds like I'm biased every time I have a conversation, but I believe that I am favored with great people in my life, and I get to share them with you. And I'm so glad today that I get an opportunity to share with you someone who's known me longer than I've known her. So this is Miss Joanne Goods. So happy that you are here with us today.
Thank you for having me. And man, what an awesome experience. And I humbly accepted this invitation because of who you are.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are the first guest I've had in all of my episodes that is from Western Kentucky.
Wow.
Everybody else, I have to explain where I'm from. So I say Western Kentucky, I'm like, where is that at?
Exactly.
And you're the only one who are both Western Kentucky natives.
Well, I feel so special.
Yes.
I really do.
How has it, I want to talk about just that. What did you gain from being in Western Kentucky that was different from being in Central Kentucky that you feel? Just being in Hoptown.
Being born and raised in Hopkinsville, and I find that as I go back, as I've gotten older and moved away, the value of the area, right? I was born and raised in Hopkinsville, to a great family, great roots, the things that make Hopkinsville so unique is not only being that it is the second largest African American population in the state of Kentucky, Jefferson being first, but it is a wealth of entrepreneurship spirit, a wealth of a sense of family. I think everybody's connected in some kind of way from that area, and no matter where I go through my travels in life, with Fort Campbell, Kentucky being 8 miles down the road, we have people from all walks of life, diverse viewpoints. My dad had a barber and beauty shop in Hopkinsville, and this is how I am connected to you, Mario, because your dad and your family, my father used to cut their hair.
Wow. And
the Radford family has probably been a part of my life before I was even conceived and born. And so what I find unique about being from Hopkinsville is the sense of connection and family, right? The sense of realness, the sense of, regardless of how people that are in Hopkinsville that have never left Hopkinsville, they may have a different view. And all of my days living there, I got married at 18 years old to a great guy from North Carolina. He was in the military, and I had the opportunity to leave right after high school and moved to Florence, South Carolina, right? 18-year-old bride, and had never left home in that capacity.
Years old. I'm still trying to resonate that 18 years old.
I got married at 18.
18.
Love at first sight.
And love at first sight led to marriage at 18.
Led to marriage at 18. Well, it was a little bit of, I grew up in a two-parent home. And so having that sense of that family dynamic was something I was raised on. My grandparents, maternal and paternal grandparents, they were both lifelong partners. And so my belief system was shaped, I believe early on, that this is what the dynamics of family looks like, right? And as we continue on in this conversation, my belief system has changed based on my experiences. So I got married at 18. I had the opportunity to move away to South Carolina, a young bride and a great husband. Not a perfect husband, but a great husband. He was a provider, and a lot of the things that I saw in my dad were some of the characteristics of this gentleman that I married. But through life's journey, he was taken away at an early age. So my husband was killed in a car accident when I was 22 years old in 1987. I'm going to tell my age, so y'all can do the math. But I experienced a traumatic event in my life, which brought me back to Hopkinsville, right? And so after this series of events, my views of Hopkinsville were very, very dark and different, right? I can continue on with the story because it's my story.
Well, it might lead to this next part, but before you get there,
I hope I answered your question.
You did. I mean, your answer is your answer,
Okay,
so it doesn't matter.
Great.
A few things. One, even though I know it was a different time, just being married at 18, which I know there's a lot of story for a lot of people who got married at a younger age, some 16, so different circumstances. But now having a very traumatic experience that interrupted everything, still at very formative years, 18, 22, those are like, I'm still finding. Do you feel that, even though we're going to take a turn in a minute, do you feel like even at 18 through 22 that you kind of had a grasp on who you were at that time?
Let me see. I believe that at that time in my life, I was, of course, I'm young, right? But I knew who I was based on the family that I was connected to. Okay, I knew that I was raised on love. I was raised on hard work ethics, morals, and values. I never met a stranger. Now, when I got married, this gentleman was from a small town, Roxborough, North Carolina, and he had some of the same values, right? And like I say, he was older, but he took me from my family, from my dad. My dad walked me down the aisle and handed me over. I got married in my parents' home. And so family support is so important, right? I mean, it was like, I'm still old-fashioned in this new age world, and I still believe in the courtship, all of that. So did I know myself at between 18 and 25? I believe I was discovering. Discovering, right? But the decision that I made to become his wife, I walked in that, and I tried, even though I only knew how to cook one meal, right?
But you did something with the one
meal.
He
was like, okay, I'm tired of spaghetti, So I was still growing up, and of course, coming from high school, is this what my hopes and dreams were? Well, I always wanted to, do something with the fashion industry, because I grew up, like I say, in the hair industry, and my parents would take my sister and myself, to hair shows. Bronner Brothers back in the 80s is so different, I'm sure now, but they nurtured and groomed us for this big old world, the best that they could, right? So was I ready to leave home and to go off in wedding bliss? Yeah.
And I want to, because there's so much to your story that we're going to uncover.
It is
so much. We are. So that's why I'm so excited.
We're going to get to part 2.
No, we haven't. We're still in the early stages. But those of you all who are watching right now, you be like, oh, I can't. It's like a good Netflix show. Like, what else? But what I want to get at before we make the turn to some of your other story is that what I enjoyed the most of being born in Western Kentucky, not saying that other parts of Kentucky are not like that, but just my experience, is the close community unit that you referenced. That at that time, and I don't know how it is now, I'm not there, I left when I was 11, but everybody was aunt, uncle, cousin, so-and-so, even those that
we
you
knew
weren't.
we knew who we were connected to because our parents
Yeah.
made sure of that. After church on Sunday, we go to grandma's house, or we're going to go visit Aunt Betty Jean. And Aunt Betty Jean's children and first cousins are raised like brothers and sisters. And I can always remember my dad had a brother, Solomon Anderson, had lived in Detroit, and he had 7 children. And the biggest event of our summer were them coming to Hopkinsville, right? And we would sit on my grandma's porch swing and wait on them, like in every car that came by. The excitement built. And so you're right. Knowing family and being connected.
Yeah. The community can, and surprisingly, Hopkinsville, it's not surprisingly, but Hopkinsville is like a little Africa. Like it's like, I mean.
It is so unique, isn't it?
Yeah, in a sense of diversity. I mean, a strong black population, of course.
Strong black population.
And then you go further up the northern part of Kentucky, and then it's like the percentage of blacks continue to decrease. So that part of Kentucky had, for me, when I moved to Mississippi for an extended period of time, it had so much similarity to Western Kentucky.
Right.
Because the food, the way they ate, the community dynamics and all that. So the western part of Kentucky is very closely related to some of the South.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I didn't realize
true roots, true Southern roots.
I didn't realize that until I moved towards Central Kentucky, and I was like, "Oh, this is different. This is not the same.
This is a whole different world."
Yeah, the music is different. The church is different. Everything, it was just completely different, than the Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
So that's why I really do appreciate the best of both worlds. I don't want to go back, but I miss.
I'm not either. I think I'm going to stay here for a minute.
I don't want to go back, but I love to visit. I love to visit. But
we're going to come see y'all.
Yeah, we're coming. So we'll bring the podcast on the road. But I enjoy the that diversity of experience and what I learned from that.
And a strong. There's some great people that have come out of Hopkinsville. I mean, the history of Hopkinsville is so dynamic, right? With the Chitlin Circuit and looking at, and that's what I say about the wealth, right? About the wealth. And I don't know if it was because of Fort Campbell or because of the Native American. And this is one of the pieces that I really find unique about Hopkinsville. And now the work that I do, right, with addiction, with alcoholism and drug addiction, I also see the dark side. And that's what I was going to talk about because of the Native American heritage that is so embedded in Hopkinsville, right? I know for myself, after diving into my ancestry, that on my dad's side, my grandma was from the Choctaw tribe, and on my mom's side was full-blooded Cherokee. And I really am interested in the history of our people. And I think when we get to the root of who we are, from whence we came, so to speak, I look at some of the darkness in our era because we really haven't tapped into our strength. And still today, when I go back, and I look at a liquor store on every corner, and I'm like, wow, the trap. The trap that this rich community of African Americans with so much potential and so much talent, a lot of our great athletes and a lot of our, just so many people that are tied to this area that got out, right? And I often wonder, does it take getting out in order to succeed in this vortex called Hopkinsville, right? Because there's a lot of darkness there when I go back now. And
which leads to this part that in your bio, I always... I love reading bios often, and I love biographies and autobiographies of people and stuff. But I love how in your bio, you don't wait until later on to introduce what your past was. Like, you talk about your bio talks about you're native from Hopkinsville. And then the next sentence is, she is a woman in long-term recovery.
Exactly.
I thought that was very strategic
Okay.
because some people have that like third paragraph down.
Okay.
They kind of
Okay.
put that, but you put that right in the top. And I want to know, as you were probably alluding to after going back to Hopkinsville after your husband passed away, is that when you started to drift into different areas?
Well, I can't say that was my first experience with substances. And yes, I am a woman in long-term recovery. And I recover out loud. And I do that, for one, because that is my testimony. And for two, there are so many people that I come in contact with on a daily basis that struggle. They struggle with the disease of addiction.
Well, the reason that I wanted to know about even your choice of words, because, for someone, I didn't necessarily have that particular past, but I think that I don't want to say it makes it welcoming, or you're included, or you're in a family of support when you say a woman in long-term recovery, instead of saying a woman who used to have, or a woman who used to drink or substance, whatever. When long-term recovery, like this is a journey. The journey continues.
The journey continues contingent upon my spiritual maintenance. And I say that, and I truly believe in deliverance. I truly believe that on June the 28th of 2006, that God heard my cry, and this time, He knew that I was heart ready. A lot of my experiences, right, with incarceration, with continuing down the path, even though things are so dark and bleak, and I don't know how to get out. But I want to talk about how I started with this substance, right? So I talked about, when my husband was killed in a tragic car accident, and this is so ironic that I am here with you today, because this was the week of his burial planning. So my husband was killed on May the 22nd of 1987 and buried on May the 27th of 1987. And let me tell you let me paint this picture for you, okay? My husband was an E7 in the military. We were living in Nashville at the time because he had gone on recruiting duty. And I by no means am blaming my journey on his death. I am in no means sitting here saying that our marriage was perfect and God took this great man from me and that was my excuse. No. I had started trying substances in high school. It started with the marijuana and peer pressure. This is the thing that they're doing, and so I want to be with this crowd. Now, I was raised in organized religion. I was raised at Freeman Chapel CME Church, right, where my grandfather helped to grow that. My dad sung in the choir. I played piano for Sunday school, so I knew about the thou shalt nots. And all my life, I was told what I should not do or this is going to happen. But let's talk about a 15-year-old that's growing into, herself and the disobedience, the low self-esteem and low self-worth. And I say this, and I don't mean this to attack anyone, but having your mom and dad in the house and your friends, right, are being raised in single homes, it seems like they had more fun, right? We were like away from downtown Hopkinsville. The barber and beauty shop was, in town, but we were like out in the country. And we didn't come to town but on Saturdays. Okay. And so it seems like I was missing out on something. I've always been attracted to that life, right? And so growing up, I can't say that one thing or another led to my addiction, but what I truly believe is that it progressed through this traumatic experience. So after my husband was pronounced dead, the military can be so cold and stoic. And I happened to be in Hopkinsville that weekend because I had started, with my design business, right? After moving from South Carolina, we moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and went on recruiting duty. We were having marital problems, right? Now, I look back on it now. Could it have been the substances that was wedging its way into this unit? Yes. I'm not going to speak on, I'm going to keep this focus on me, but we experimented. You think about the 80s, this was the cocaine era, right? And so when I heard that it was a rich man's high, now I tell you, I like everything glam and glitz. And so all of the while now, I'm edging God out of the picture, right? God never left me, but I'm edging God out because, see, something has replaced that. Something has replaced this void in me that needed to be filled. And so I truly adapted to a different lifestyle after he passed. And what that looked like for me is on the day that he was pronounced dead, I can remember a drug dealer pulling up at my mom and dad's house, and what he said, he handed me a substance, and he handed me a fifth of Hennessy. And what was told to me was, this'll help you get through this. And so my mind registered, this is the answer. So through this traumatic experience, and I can remember flying my husband's body back to North Carolina to his family. And this was before 9/11. And so strapped down with drugs, drinking those many shots. Because see, now I've checked out, right? I've checked out. So I've got to cover up this pain with something. And like I say, I grew up with the religion, like, if you do this, you're going to do that. And I just need to say, sitting here with you, Mario, that I feel like I can be open about this. Being raised in church as a young girl, I believe some of us, like yourself, we nurture that relationship, okay? Through this traumatic experience in 1987, I became angry with God. I became so angry with God. Like, how? I had such a childlike concept of this relationship that they say gonna get you over. Take it to the Lord in prayer. I don't want to talk to him. Because through my experiences of becoming a wife, right? I got to get out of the house. I got to go to military balls, and all of this was new. And I was, new experiences, and I liked that lifestyle. And so, my addiction took a hold of me, and it wouldn't let go. This was in 1987, and like I said, I cannot say that is this where my journey started on this destructive path. No, it started way back. It progressed. It progressed because what started out euphoric, right, ended up not so fun. And this is the disease of addiction, right? It had me in such a grip and in such a place that I found myself, right, gravitating towards those that were doing the things that I like to do. Going to church on Sunday and reading my Bible for what? This has given me everything I need. See, this is how the adversary will, I talk about the mind a lot. And so it was like a mental takeover. So when that individual told me, this is how you get through traumatic experience, through death. And we as a people, we're going to pour one out for the homies, right? That narrative that we have been taught and that we tell ourselves that this is going to make it better, right? This is how I got to this place. I found myself in such a dark hole, and not wanting to come out because it was comfortable. Being stripped of my reality. I don't want to face the world today. I need something to get out of bed. I can't go to sleep because my mind won't stop racing. I need something. And that something turned into a lifestyle. I don't know if you got a question in there, but I can continue to talk about it.
No, I do not have a question.
Well, let me just continue to talk about it.
I think that this is probably, I believe, for those who might not know how to not just relate, but to be able to assist people in different areas, because not only just when you haven't been in that, but when you don't understand what might have started it.
Exactly.
You stand on the side of judgment.
Exactly.
And say, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense. Can't you just stop?
Can't you just stop?
And when you gave all those different layers of this is, even though it started earlier, but for you to say, for someone said, this is how you get through this. There are a lot of people who use whatever as this is how I cope with life. This is how I manage work. This is how I'm a single parent. This is how I've raised my children.
Exactly.
Because it helps me. You don't want me without that.
Exactly.
And as you said, it starts a lifestyle of
It
that.
starts a
so
lifestyle.
So when you say, go to God, as you said, why? Because I'm fine. This is what works with me. So to go to God would be to detox from what has helped.
For what's helping me. And let me add another layer to that, right? So going from, and I need to put it out here. My husband and I were having marital problems, right? And so let me put it out here. So on the day of his death, I became a widow of a veteran. So the layers to that is insurance policies, back pay, monthly stipend, income. I had a 2-year-old son at the time, Justin. That's my baby, who is now 38 years old, right? I drug him through the pain of not knowing how to grieve. And so let me talk about, so now the money comes in. And need God, I became cocky, arrogant, right? I was so nasty and rude to people because what I need God for? I got a monthly check coming in. I can buy all the drugs I want and still drive around in this candy apple red glass top Corvette and call myself the Black Widow. This false narrative that I wore, right? So when you ask me about that 18-year-old girl, I knew more about myself at 18 that from 22 to 42, I didn't know who that person was. I had become a chameleon, right? And for a little while, the money helped. The money worked, right? I could go do, say, it took me 10 hours to drive to Atlanta, stopping on the side of the road because, see, the substance is still riding. This substance is riding with me everywhere I go, right? I've got to have my supplies before I can do anything. And in my mind, see, I suffer from a disease that tells me that I'm okay, right? But today what I know is that first one that I took that this is going to get you through is the one I chased for 22 years. That feeling of ease and comfort that it gave me. That feeling of, this is how I'm going to get through. I chased that for 22 years. And I went deeper and deeper into my addiction, which led to criminal behavior, which led to a felony conviction in 2002. So when we talk about the progression, right? And see, I can't see the movie I'm starring in because I am God. I'm controlling this. I'm running this, right? And so I started playing around with the criminal justice system. Right? What started with the DUI in 1999, wound up with a felony conviction in 2002 for drug paraphernalia. And that's a whole nother podcast about unfair sentencing. So I signed 5 years probation if I completed this program called drug court. Now, let me tell you that I think at that time in 2002, I was tired. The money was gone. I was the I was the girl walking around town and people were saying, what happened to her? God, she come from such a good family. Man, she's pitiful. I wish she'd get some help. I can't stop this train. I can't stop this train. I hear all that because I hear people saying that now about individuals that I see. You know, there for the grace of God goes I. There was a video shown of a young lady, and I'm not going to get deep into it, in Hopkinsville. This was this past week. And I'm like, look at me. Just, anytime you saw me, I was under the influence. When you didn't see me, I was stuck up in some old trap house, right under the influence. Man, I don't live back there today, but what I can say is that I am the true example of redemption.
Yeah.
I am the true example of the Word of God when and I'm not a Bible thumper, but when He said that He'll make all things new, I'm gonna get to shouting up in here. Because Mario, what I can say is that I can't say all the time. I can't say that this span of addiction from 87 to 2006, right? The stints of jail stays, right? I look at jail today. I look at my incarceration as rescue, because God's love is so wonderful, right? That He had to hide me from myself. And this is so cool that we are sitting across from each other today, because there was a chaplain and I talked to her. She called me yesterday and we talked about my last incarceration. If I can talk about that now, because I believe this was the start of the redemption and the deliverance from this hell I was living in. So I went to Christian County Jail for the last time in 2006. It was on June the 27th. Now, mind you, I just completed a 25-month sentence for this paraphernalia charge that I received in 2002. And when I got there, I knew I was there for a minute. Because I played with the court system for so long. Right? Disobedient. Right? Cockiness and arrogance. Right? I can pay my way out of this. But one of the things that when I look back over my life, all I can say is that was God. That was God. So if there's anyone out there watching and you've got loved ones that's incarcerated, just know that sometimes that is necessary. Yeah. Sometimes it is necessary, right? And so
I just first of all, this conversation go on and on and on and on, because this is just such great loaded information. And thank you for sharing that, which I knew that you would, you know, but I think that there's probably so many people who need to share this with so many, and maybe sit there and watch this and cry to understand where their family member is and not be so judgmental. So that's one thing. But the story doesn't end with just, the hardship. You took that experience and now turned it into this, fashion icon.
Fashion icon. Let's talk about the good stuff.
Yes, who has designed so many different outfits and things, and everyone's going. You have seasons, so I can call you if I want to get something off. You like, now look, I'm booked, I am busy. Drop it off tomorrow, and that's it. Whatever. And I know you hinted to having fashion and talked about the Bronner brothers and all that early in age. So when did you come back to that? So
let me get to the fashion bug bit me right when Ebony Fashion Fair, the traveling troupe, right? The Johnson family out of Chicago, they used to have a traveling fashion show, and so my aunt, who my dad's sister, Aunt Margaret, she's very fashionable lady, and she would come to visit on the train, right? That the train depot in Hopkinsville, you always see people taking pictures of the depot, but that's where I used to pick my aunt up with my parents, and the excitement of the train pulling up, because when she stepped off the train, she always smelled like youth, Estee Lauder Youth do, and she always had some fashionable garment on. And so sewing has been a craft in my family all my life. So as a little girl, let's go back to way back. So as a little girl, my grandmother, who I referenced to, was a Native American. She would make us, let me say this because Granny made you, have an hour of sewing, an hour of gardening, etiquette, training up the child, right? And so I always had this craft that was in me, right? That my grandmother nurtured, and then and I hated it. I wanted to go outside and play. I don't want to sit here and learn how to darn a sock with the wooden darner. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit there and pump that old Singer sewing machine. I want to go outside and play. And so fast forward, in reference to my Aunt Margaret. So my Aunt Margaret was a necktie designer. She worked for a company in Baltimore, Maryland, where it was manufacturing neckties, and she was one of the lead seamstresses there. And so when my grandparents got older, my Aunt Margaret had to move her lifestyle and move back to Hopkinsville. What a gift for me. So after I got married, after I got married, right, I would come home, and my aunt and I, we collaborated on, because she had a design shop. My parents were one of the first barber and beauty shops under one roof. I can remember the Kentucky State Board coming in when he was, building this on Canton Street. A lot of people. I've got all of these pictures where your daddy and your family used to come to, right? We were the curl masters. And so when my aunt moved back home, my dad had a fourplex. My family had a fourplex. It was barbershop, beauty shop, laundromat, and tailoring shop. So I would spend my time in the tailoring shop, right? And this is when the guys were wearing the hot pink Flag Brothers suits, and she would initial their lapels on it. And it was the cool guys coming in getting these suits made, right? And so that little girl that used to have to don socks and sit there with my granny, now I could sit with my aunt, and I was mesmerized by all these wonderful pieces that she would create. So I picked it up again, and I started sewing. My mom's a seamstress, my granny, and my aunt, right? So it's been in my family all my life. And so we started this troupe, this fashion line called Mad Jag Rags. Now, I'm telling you, my husband was still living. I think I had my first fashion show at the Destiny Club in Hopkinsville. Shout out to the Lynch family. And so I started this journey of fashion right in Hopkinsville. Okay? Now, in South Carolina, I had a lady that had a boutique when my husband was living, when we were living there. And so when I became pregnant with Justin, I would make my maternity clothes. I was new, I don't want to look pregnant. I was bank teller at the time, so I've got some banking experience. I've had like a buppy, lifestyle, black urban professional. My husband and I were, but when I moved back after his death, I can't say that the day he died that my addiction, that I started going to jail and I started using every day. No, I maintained for a long time. And so fashion was what I embarked upon, right? I'm going to create this line of clothing, right? And this was like in the 80s and 90s. And so that's one of the things I'm known for in Hopkinsville. Great fashion shows and great prom dresses. I'm going to tell you how God works, because fast forward, we really doing it now. Yeah. But one of the things about when I started out on this journey of fashion, I was very serious, right? And so in 1988, a year after his death, I had a fashion show at my dad's club. And so I packed up my portfolio, and I was really focused on, this is what I'm going to do in life. I'm going to pick up my life and I'm going to deal with this, this gut punch, and I'm going to go off and be a fashion designer. So I went to this school in Chicago, right? Not understanding the disease of addiction. I'm going to tell you the grace of God. Not understanding the disease of addiction. So I packed up my portfolio and I met with the admissions counselor. And, I walked down Michigan Avenue in one of my creations and I had arrived, right? But the grace of God. So they were very impressed with my work because I knew the basics of sewing. But I really wanted to dive into design so that I could get, from the ground up, how do I create this brand that will go worldwide? And so, all right, they're impressed, right? I'm ready to come back and get Justin, my 2-year-old son, and we're 3 at the time, and I'm going to move to Chicago. I found out I was pregnant. Now, mind you, my husband had passed, right? And I share this so openly because there are women, and we find ourselves sometimes caught up. See, I have another son, Jonathan. And Jonathan knows this, and I don't know who Jonathan's father is. Because, not being vigilant, I found myself pregnant. See, Jonathan has become my lifesaver now because now I look back on my life and can you see me in Chicago in the 80s going to design school with this disease of addiction riding my back? I wouldn't be sitting here today, I don't believe. So this seed that God planted in me put a halt on my plans. So getting to going to jail, right? So I went to Christian County Jail and I was there for 25 months. And so the chaplain, George Zanders, and Pastor Terry Hancock of Lighthouse Church, I'm going to tell her to look at this. She would come in and minister us. Oh, I led the jail church. Quiet Trouble in My Way was my song. That's what got me through, right? Creating me a clean heart so that I may be used by you. So that God that I met as a little girl, being in jail, that God came back to me, right? And so the jail felt so bad for me. I've been there for so long. They bought a sewing machine. And I started going out into the law box, repairing jail jumpsuits for Christian County Jail. And the chaplain would come in and minister to me. And so you mentioned the video that, that's going viral. The lady that prophesied over my life while I was incarcerated, she prophesied and said that your name will be Joy, and that everyone that comes in contact with you will experience the joy of the Lord. And I walk in that today. And so this cannot be any more profound to sit here with you to be able to share my story. Because, we see people and we think that everything is, oh, wow, my life is still today. I still have struggles. And so being a woman in long-term recovery, what that means is that each day that I get up, I have to tap into the power. And the more that I grow in this design brand, Jag Rags Couture, which it is my initials, but I dropped the mad because my aunt's deceased. And it came to me in my spirit, just a girl relying on Almighty God's strength. And so each day that I get up, right, I look at my life like a piece of fabric, right, just a blank canvas, okay? And I'm a storyteller, so my granddaddy was a storyteller. And my girlfriends at work, shout out to my coworkers. My boss knows I'm here because I thought it was live. I'm like, if you see me on Facebook, I'm clocking out for lunch. Yes, thank you, Specialty Courts, for allowing me to do this. What? So talking about this design brand, it is my baby. It is my baby. It is my gift from God, right? And so I think that when we get into recovery, because that's what I am, in recovery. And I shared this at a young lady's 1-year celebration last night. People at UK Hospital are not there because they're well. So I have to treat this disease of addiction on a daily basis. Now, I do believe in deliverance, and I do have a church home. But I also am a member of a 12-step fellowship that like-minded people. See, I can't come to the church and talk about the things that I could talk about in there. But what the 12 steps of the fellowship that I belong to, what it has done for me, it has uncovered the pain, the hurts and harms, right? The way that I operated in life. Because see, what worked in my 15-year-old Joanne, right, didn't work in my 22-year-old Joanne. And now here I am, this 42-year-old Joanne. And now here I am, this 59-year-old Joanne. So my life is evolving and changing, right? And so having to be aware of who I am as a woman of God. Yes. Because I'm going to tell you, honey, this thing up here will have me somewhere that I'm not. So staying humble and keeping my feet planted and staying rooted in the word. So this design brand that I have it's blowing up right before my eyes. And so I had a lady, Rhonda Clark. That's my granny's sister. And so, I'm not trying to break the bank, or everybody's like, well, how do you become a Jag Rags client? Because smoke and mirrors, Facebook is smoke and mirrors. Facebook will have y'all thinking that I'm over here bank rolled up. No, it's not about the likes. It's not about the money. It is about the message. That if he can take a filthy rag like me and clean me up and use me, because see, God knows what I like, right? So now, just like the devil knew what I like, God knows his child. I'm going to give her this platform, right? And so, Rhonda Clark, she said to me one day, girl, you bad. God did not put a cheap gift in you. And I walk with that, because we all have gifts. We all have talents. Yeah. You are a singer, songwriter, a marvelous minister, and you reach people. You reach the masses the way that you reach the masses. My gift is creativity. And so I can take, and I'm going to say, everybody, oh, girl, you can do anything. I can through Christ. I can do anything through Christ. And so I have become this black Kentucky fashion designer that way back, that lost dream that I thought would never happen. But through my obedience, and I fall short every day. Mario, you know me, your wife know me. I might say some stuff about somebody. But I'm still human. I find that the joy that was prophesied over my life. Yeah. Right? I have 2 adult children. I have 5 beautiful grandchildren. I struggle with, am I doing the grandmama thing right? I still struggle with parenting out of guilt. Like, because my sons went through my addiction with me. Yeah. So we drag our families along with us, right? Yeah. But God, that is the design brand. I do it for my sons. I do it to let them know that no matter falter or fail, get up. Yeah. Get up. Hold on to that dream. You can do anything in this world that you want to do, but you got to keep God first. Yeah. Right? So I had a prom season this year of 24 gowns. I set a time, right? And so each year it gets better. And I go back to Hopkinsville. And let me tell you about the support of Hopkinsville. The first question you asked me about what makes Hopkinsville so unique, I'm living proof that I can get out, right? I can get out and make a life, right, worth living. Yeah. But I got to go back to this rich community. Not to say, hey, look at me, but my greatest joy is working with my young clients, my seniors, right? And they're graduating today. And so they challenged me during prom season. And it's not only prom, I just don't do prom gowns, right? I had other orders. I have lifelong clients such as your wife that she'll call me on the drop of a dime and I'm going to fuss at her and might say a few choice words. But see, these are the women and the men that continue to move this brand forward. Right? By staying humble and working. I just don't design for black people. Let me say that. I have an array of clients. And every time that I encounter a client, it always turns into a story. And so I could go on, and I just hope that God will give me the strength to continue on with Jag Rags Couture, because it is something that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
I also work in the field of addiction. So at 51 years old, I graduated from Eastern Kentucky University.
Yes.
Right, with my bachelor's degree. Because, see, once I'm restored, right, I got to go back and grab the things that the disease of addiction robbed me from. Right? And so I'm not trying to just create this whole persona. This is who I was before the devil stole it.
Yeah.
And so when they tell me that once the addict puts the dope down, wonderful things happen. See, the fellowship that I belong to, it's a fellowship of hope, which entail I take into my Sunday fellowship. So I got a whole lot of support and a whole lot of uplifting. So I don't get here by myself.
Yeah.
Right? I don't get here by myself.
Well, I am...
Is my 40 minutes up?
We've been over 40 minutes a long time ago, but I am so inspired by this conversation. But I want to make sure that people know how to find you, how they can connect with you, so that those who say, "Hey, I want some Jag Rags," or they want to hear your story, or I believe that your story will, as it already has, but continue to reach even more people. And give even more hope. That's what I believe.
Well, you just continue to pray for me,
and,
okay?
I just believe that it will, because there's more, that there are more examples of people that can come out and survive, that needs to be heard. But anyhow, but let people know how they can connect with you and they can find you.
Well, I am on Facebook as Joanne Goods. I do have a Facebook page, Jag Rags Couture. I also work for Kentucky Specialty Courts. And so the ironic part is that I laugh and talk about my incarceration, but, my number, my prison number came across the desk of the same people that I work for now. So you can't tell me that God cannot turn it around. So you can reach me through Facebook. I'm easy to find. I don't advertise a lot for Jag Rags, but I will say that I do know that everybody's not my client. My sons want me to go mass production and Mama, you need a storefront. And, I'm not saying that I'm keeping this in a box, but I wait on God to move me. Right. I wait on God to give me the door to walk through. And so what I do for my career, as far as a certified alcohol and drug counselor for the state of Kentucky, and for Kentucky Specialty Courts, I am the racial and ethnic disparities coordinator. So I get to sit across the table from judges and make decisions or give input. I don't make the decisions. I am so sorry. But give input, right, for people just like me.
Yeah.
So God he's taken me out, right, and brought me back in a different capacity.
Yeah.
And so everything and all that I do, right, is of God.
Yeah.
And if you're struggling with finding that relationship, and that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about as far as growing up in church and where I am today. I knew about religion. Today I have relationship. Yeah. Today I have relationship that I rely on. Yeah. My faith wavers. I get tired. I get frustrated. I am human. But when it's all said and done, right? When I choose to tap into, okay, God, I'm going to give this to you. When I choose to surrender, when I choose to turn it over, because I'm going to try to fix it. I got a few control issues. I'm a smart woman. I can handle this still today. The reason that I say I'm a woman in long-term recovery is because I still have to treat my thinking. I still have to run my thoughts past someone. Right? Because a lot of times I see people every day, and I find that this is a trauma response. I don't need nobody. I'll figure it out. You're doing it the hard way. Talk about it to someone. Find a confidant, a total stranger. Pull them off the street. If you don't feel comfortable talking to a pastor because you feeling as though, oh God, here comes the church thing. Get you a trusted confidant, because secrets die in the light of exposure. Yeah. a lot of things I was packing, right? I found a group of people that could help me unpack the things that I had carried that had weighed me down. Erykah Badu said, yeah, let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. Just letting it go.
Yeah. Well, once again, I did want to point this out that I didn't point out earlier, just to end here, is that you did receive a full pardon from Governor Beshear in 2015.
The daddy.
Yeah, the daddy. Well, it's still the family.
It's the family from Western Kentucky.
Yes,
Hey,
yes.
we
It's
connected.
It's still the family.
Uncle Andy, we connected.
Yes, we still the
That was
family.
not a political plug.
I know.
Yes, I received a full pardon in 2015. And after that, I had I've gone in and done the work to have my felonies expunged. So clean slate.
Yes,
right.
wonderful.
I hadn't been to jail since 2006.
I'm so happy. So happy.
Not to say I haven't got stopped on a speed tick, but I'm getting better.
Yes, well, everyone, thank you again for being on here today. I appreciate it. And those of you who have watched it, I hope that you have really, really been impacted. You've laughed. And that you're inspired, and maybe you'll sit down and watch this or listen to this with someone that you might need to listen to it with, to let them know that there's hope on the other side. So thank you for tuning in for this episode. And as always, continue to embrace your own unique design. So until next time, I'll see you at our next episode. Have a great day.